Good evening. This planet Earth is a bundle of relationships. So that is the talk I'm going to give you now. The outbreak of COVID-19 provoked me to think about what kind of relationship 7.5 billion people are having with the Mother Earth. Something went wrong. Our relationship is not benign. Our relationship went berserk. We need to learn from nature what kind of relationships they maintain towards Mother Earth. There's a word for it. It is called symbiosis. Symbiosis simply means living together. Actually, symbiosis is an umbrella term referring to any long-term interaction between two organisms that share a close physical space or living in the environment, living together. There are four main types of symbiotic relationships. One is mutualism, commensalism, parasitism, competition. But in this talk I am concerned about only three: mutualism, commensalism, parasitism. So we are going to analyze at the end of the talk what went wrong. We should have been mutualistic, but we weren't. At least we should have been commensalistic. We weren't. But we were parasitic. We are the biggest virus on earth. It is not the COVID-19. Human species is Ebola. Human species is a mosquito, and human species is COVID-19, a parasite, a virus, a pathogen. I don't want to condemn our species. I love Homo sapiens. But you will find out, and you will agree with me at the end of the talk. Yes, I am right. So mutualism first is a symbiotic relationship in which both the species benefit. Both the species benefit. For example, bees and plants. Plant pollinators are bees or insects, and plants benefit. At the same time, insects and bees, they benefit. Insects and animals play a vital role in the pollination of flowering plants. While the plant pollinator receives nectar or fruit from the plant, it also collects and transfers pollen in the process. Flowering plants rely heavily on insects and other animals for pollination. Bees and other insects are lured to plants by the sweet aromas secreted from their flowers. When the insects collect nectar, they become covered in pollen. As the insects travel from plant to plant, they deposit the pollen from one plant to another. Other animals also participate in a symbiotic relationship with plants. Birds and mammals eat fruit and distribute the seeds to other locations where the seeds can germinate. Also, other examples are there like ants and aphids, nitrogen-fixing bacteria, and legume plants, etc., etc. Next we go to commensalism. What is commensalistic relationship? It is a symbiotic relationship in which one species benefits while the other species is not affected. It is not harmed. It is not destroyed. Only one species benefits. Especially the host doesn't get destroyed. Birds that live in hollows of the trees are commensal. That is a good example. The birds, they nest in the hollow of the tree. They don't make a hollow. Already hollow is provided. Tree has built a house for the birds. They go and live there. So they don't destroy tree. They live there. The tree is not harmed by their living in the hollow. Another example is cattle egrets. This morning I filmed in my agricultural field a cow and an egret. They share a symbiotic relationship. The cattle egret is a type of heron that will follow livestock herds everywhere. You must have watched in the agricultural field. So in this, the cow has fleas in his body. This small egret cleaning up all the parasites from the cow. So in that process, the cow is grazing and it stirs up the grass and all the insects come out. The egret snaps one by one and eats them. See? Cow benefits because cow is getting rid of all the cooties or insects or bugs. But the egret is getting food. So here, cow is not at all affected. But here, egret is getting benefits. The last one is parasitism. It is a symbiotic relationship in which one species, the parasite, benefits while the other species, the host, is harmed, affected. The definition of a parasite is a person or organism that takes from or exploits others, giving nothing in return. Does it sound something? You remember some species? You take, but you don't give nothing in return. Does it remind you? Who is that? An example of a parasite is tapeworm or ringworm in our body. They take all the nutrients. You eat, they eat up, so you lose weight. An example of a parasite is a person you know who is continually borrowing money and asking things of you without giving anything back. There are many of them, isn't it? Many of them are parasites. They borrow money, they extract services from you, they borrow books, they borrow everything from you, but they don't return. They disappear. Other examples include mosquitoes. Mosquitoes is the best example of parasitism. They bite, they get the blood, they suck your blood. At the same time, they harm you. They give you malaria. They give you disease. That is called parasitism. In commensalism, the organism gets benefit, but it's not harming the host. But in parasitism, host is harmed. So that is the difference. Other examples, mistletoe, roundworms, all viruses, ticks, and the protozoan that causes malaria. These are all examples of parasites. In a parasitic relationship, the host species is always exploited to some degree, although often in such a way that its health is impaired only slowly. This allows the parasite to exploit its host over a longer period. Many parasites only spend a portion of their lives in the relationship, either to reproduce or during an initial growth stage. Parasites can be divided into two basic categories: ectoparasites and endoparasites. Now you need to decide whether human species is ectoparasites. We already established that we are parasitic. We are not mutualistic, we are not commensalistic. You understand, we are parasitic. So now you have to decide the two subdivisions, ectoparasites and endoparasites. The meaning is the former, ectoparasite, is referring to external parasites, and the latter, the endoparasites, is referring to the internal parasites. So we can really, the internal parasites signify that our anger, greed, selfishness, violence, hate, jealousy, consumption, all that things we can quote as examples. So we are, I would say, endoparasites, that is internal parasites. We produce a lot of venom. In Laudato Si, Pope Francis is writing about this parasitic species, that is Homo sapiens, in the paragraph number 117, 228 and 229. So I would like to read Pope Francis writing from the encyclical Laudato Si, paragraph number 117. He writes as follows: neglecting to monitor the harm done to nature and the environmental impact of our decisions is only the most striking sign of a disregard for the message contained in the structures of nature itself. When we fail to acknowledge as part of reality the worth of a poor person, a human embryo, a person with disabilities, to offer just a few examples, it becomes difficult to hear the cry of nature itself. Everything is connected. Once the human being declares independence, that is what we are, from reality and behaves with absolute dominion, parasitic relationship, that is dominion, the very foundations of our life begin to crumble, fall. Instead of carrying out his role as a cooperator with God in the work of creation, man sets himself up in place of God, thus ends up provoking a rebellion on the part of nature. That is the quote from Centesimus Annus, written by Saint Pope John Paul II. Next paragraph is 228. Pope Francis follows such a beautiful, beautiful instinct and intelligence when he writes this paragraph. Care for nature is part of a lifestyle which includes the capacity for living together and communion, mutualism or commensalism. Jesus reminded us that we have God as our common Father and that this makes us brothers and sisters. Fraternal love can only be gratuitous. It can never be a means of repaying others for what they have done or will do for us. That is why it is possible to love our enemies. The same gratuitousness inspires us to love and accept the wind, the sun, and the clouds, even though we cannot control them. In this sense, we can speak of a universal fraternity. The last paragraph I want to quote in this talk, number 229 from Laudato Si. Pope Francis writes as follows: we must regain the conviction that we need one another, mutualism, that we have a shared responsibility for others and the world, and that being good and decent are worth it. We have had enough of immorality and the mockery of ethics, goodness, faith, and honesty. It is time to acknowledge that light-hearted superficiality has done us no good. When the foundations of social life are corroded, what ensues are battles over conflicting interest, new forms of violence and brutality, and obstacles to the growth of a genuine culture of care for the environment. That concludes the writing of Pope Francis. He is just telling, he is recommending the mutualistic relationship when we commune with the Mother Earth. Church has given us a beautiful message through Laudato Si. This is the relationship we have forgotten for the past 4 million years. Ours was dominion, parasitic, not even commensalistic. So maybe we have to pass first commensalistic and then upgrade to mutualistic. I think mutualism is one of the most interesting forms of symbiosis, as it is a benefit to both species involved. It has a beautiful word in India. Mahatma Gandhi called it Sarvodaya. Sarva means all. Udaya means upliftment, welfare. Welfare of all, upliftment of all. That is the philosophy of mutualism. Everything should be flourishing. That is Sarvodaya. We work for the common good and we denounce self-interest. To conclude my talk, I want to really quote from Jesus Christ, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 20, verse 26, where Jesus is really teaching about mutualism. Mutualism. In one place he really teaches there is no better love than laying one's own life for the sake of others. That is a brilliant quote. But this quote is beautiful for the example of mutualism or symbiosis. Matthew 20, chapter 26 verse. It shall not be this way among you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. Thank you.